don't know if you remember the way that Clash of Kings is written, the second Game of Thrones book, but as you... the whole book is approaching the Battle of Blackwater and setting that up. And I think the phenomenal achievement of that particular book, the whole series is great, but that one does something unique. It's that you get to know both sides of the conflict.
Yeah.
So by the time the first, strike is swung, the first sword is unsheathed, you're not just worried about Tyrion, who's, obviously the person you come in biased for, but you fall in love with characters like Davos. Stannis is always kind of a turd, but you love Davos.
Yeah.
And I think we've been doing a good tit for tat of that through this season, but the thing that he does in Clash of Kings is really, really short chapters that bounce between those perspectives, and that's the way he shows the battle.
Cool.
It's these jumps between Davos and, say, Tyrion or Sansa, and it's all little character-focused jumps. And I don't know if having a whole episode at this point on Alicent and the next episode presumably being Rhaenyra's side, they might merge back in. It might not be that clean a binary. But I don't know if it gets that escalating tension that bouncing between short chapters would.
Yeah.
Like, I want this to build to an inciting incident. I want to leave off breathless from this season that the Civil War is now irrevocably started. I don't think we have that yet. I think this is a huge provocation, but the big thing is going to come in the next episode.
Right.
But do you think this sort of bifurcation of the blacks and the greens serves the build to that release the hounds moment at the end of the season?
I mean, I think so, because we've been the whole season has been showing these two characters diverge. You start in episode 1 where they're best friends, like almost lovers, and then you're just coming more and more and more apart. I mean, last episode we kind of tried to bring it together, with like one single little thread, but then Viserys died, and then the confusion about which Aegon, and then that cuts it off, and then they're completely separated. So I think it works.
And sort of, it also, I think it was intentional, and obviously it was an intentional decision not to have Rhaenyra in this episode, but to sort of create that tension of, oh my God, this is a thing, lock the doors. This doesn't get out until we finish our business here. They were being furtive on purpose. So, we kind of had to stay there with them. I guess that was the director's attempt at sort of creating that void we knew Rhaenyra was missing. Sort of like what you guys have been talking about with Yennefer in The Witcher.
Oh, yeah.
Like her absence is almost more strongly felt than her presence.
Totally.
If Rhaenyra had been there for 10 seconds during all of this, there's no way this happens.
Sure. Yeah, because what's Rhaenyra? Rhaenyra doesn't know yet. She doesn't know that Viserys is dead, I assume, until, when this episode ends, when the word gets out. But before that, what are we going to see? Her at Dragonstone just dropping the kids off? It's not going to be anything interesting. It's This episode takes place over 24 hours?
Yeah.
If that. So there's nothing to show her anyway. And I think it's good to not have her at King's Landing during this 12-hour chunk, because they've got to scheme and figure out their plan before she gets back.
I think this structural decision sort of undercuts a little achievement they had last week. That moment of Alicent reaching out to Rhaenyra a little and saying, we'd like if you come back. The king and I would like to see you. I thought that strengthened their connection again, which had really not been on screen since we aged up the actors.
Right.
And I love that connection. I think that's the most important part of this conflict, to humanize it and add empathy and tragedy and emotion, humanity to it. And I think splitting them up sort of undoes that, and it makes it, I think it lessens their connection versus bouncing between them. You can develop this sort of narrative resonance and echo and tragedy between them.
Yeah. I
didn't like how distant they felt here.
And instead, we've just raised the stakes of her saying that she's coming back on Dragonback.
Yeah. But, this whole episode, you get to see the complexity of Alicent being well, Viserys wants my son to be king, so I want to make damn sure he becomes king. But her also saying, oh, but we don't need to kill Rhaenyra and her family. Her desperately trying to get all these people around her who are on her side to not kill Rhaenyra. And I think part of that is because she's not a terrible person. Part of that is because she knows Viserys loved Rhaenyra. I wouldn't want that. But I think it really comes from she was once her childhood friend, and like they were really, really close.
Yeah.
And even with everything happening, she still has some sort of love for her and doesn't want her to die because of her husband's dying wish, what she thinks is her husband's dying wish. So there's that complexity. It's not just all of a sudden, okay, well, Civil War time, I hate Rhaenyra, I hope you die. Like, it's not that simple. So I think that their relationship and that strength, that the little connection that we saw at the end of last episode, was important and is still there. It's not just irrelevant now.